I'm from Angels Camp, California.
Okay. Nicki, the first question our testimonies are set up based on 5 questions. So the first question that we like to ask is, why did you choose to have an abortion?
Well, I was with a man who I loved very dearly, and we weren't married, and I got pregnant, and he said, I already have 2 kids I'm paying support for, I can't afford anymore, so I really don't want to have any more kids. And I really wanted to stay with him, and so I let him convince me that that was a viable option. And so he drove me to the clinic, and he paid the fee, and he waited for me, and he drove me home. And we never spoke on that entire trip.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what happened to you at the clinic? Is there anything about the clinic experience that you recall?
Well, when I got there, I was really, really anxious, and I knew they would give me a Valium if I asked them for it, so I did. And so I took this Valium, which didn't really help ease my anxiety. It just made me feel kind of floaty. And I still felt really bad. There was this real awful weight in the pit of my stomach. And even though the waiting area was comfortable, it was not too hot, not too cold. It was all very pleasant to look at, and the people were as kind as they knew how to be. But the entire thing was a lie, and so even though they took me into a little room where they called it counseling, they said you have to talk to a counselor before we'll do the procedure for you. And so they took me into this small little room, and there was a lady sitting behind the desk, and she asked me how far along I was, and I told her, and she asked me why I wanted to have the abortion, and I explained that to her, and she asked if I had my receipt, and I showed it to her, and she said, okay, come with me, and she took me into a little room, and had me take my clothes off and put them in a locker, and she put the key on a little stretchy thing around my wrist, and she took me into the procedure room, and she had me lie down on the table and put my feet in the stirrups. And she said she would be right there and hold my hand if I wanted her to. And that I could squeeze her hand as hard as I needed to. And that I would be okay.
Okay, after the procedure happened, how did you feel right afterwards? Were you relieved? Were you sad?
Actually, I was sad. I didn't feel a sense of relief after that abortion. The procedure itself was actually physically quite painful. I want anybody to know that who's never ever had an abortion and who's heard all the propaganda that if they tell you it's a painless procedure, that's a lie. The only way it's painless is if they knock you out entirely. If you are conscious at all during that procedure, it will hurt. And I did feel depressed and anxious, and I had this big just this big empty void inside me.
What kind of experience did you have long term? We talk about long-term consequences. You know, every choice we make has consequences. Can you identify any long-term consequences?
Yeah. Drug and alcohol abuse was some of the long-term stuff that resulted from my choice to abort my child, and mostly just denial and risky behavior, more risky behavior. You know, I broke up with that gentleman. It didn't take very long after that before I broke up with him and decided that I couldn't stay with him anymore. And then I just kind of went nuts a little bit and dated a lot of guys and tried not to think about what I was doing because, you know, deep down I knew everything that I did was wrong. Everything that I had done from that moment forward was wrong, and I knew it. I knew it was wrong, and I couldn't seem, I was compelled by some, I don't know, I couldn't seem to help myself. It seemed like the more self-destructively I behaved, I had a death wish, I guess, and I was too chicken to try to do it myself.
Well, how did you find help and healing? How did you finally find a place where you can talk about this and forgive yourself?
Actually, I was on my way to work one day, and I listened to a local radio station out of Modesto called KAMB, and I heard on it that they were announcing in the Modesto area there was going to be a Bible study called Forgiven and Set Free. And as soon as I heard about that and what it was about, I started praying that someone in my area would facilitate one of those Bible studies and do it soon, because I knew I needed that. And so I prayed for a little more than a year. I prayed every day that every time I would hear that advertisement again, that public service announcement, I would pray again that someone close in my area would do that. And one day, a lady at the Crisis Pregnancy Center in my county mentioned that we were at the National Day of Prayer, and she mentioned to me that she wanted to start one of those Bible studies, and was I interested in coming? And I said absolutely. And even though she wanted to have at least 5 people to do this Bible study, everybody else that said they wanted to do it ended up not coming, and she did it with me, just me. She did it just with me. And
she wanted you to get better.
That's what, you know, my pastor told me Jesus would have died just for me. If I had been the only one, even if y'all weren't there, he still would have died just for me. And this lady did this Bible study just for me, and I just praise God for her.
And we want women to know that we are here for them, just for them. Thank you so much, Nicki.
Thank you.